The sun was setting on the edge of the dusty frontier world, its red light spilling across the broken fences and the dry soil of a small human farm. John wiped sweat from his forehead and leaned against his shovel. Farming on this planet was never easy, but he kept going, planting and harvesting just enough to survive. Then, he heard it, weak footsteps dragging across the dirt road. John turned and his heart stopped. An alien was stumbling toward him, tall but thin like a shadow. His clothes were torn, his hands blistered, and his eyes full of hunger. He looked like he hadn't eaten for days. The alien collapsed near John's fence, dust rising around him with shaking hands. He reached forward and whispered in a rough, broken voice, "I'll carry your burdens, human. Just feed me tonight." John froze. He had seen poor aliens before, begging in towns or working for almost nothing. But this one was different. There was desperation in his voice, a strange mix of pride and defeat. It felt like he was not just begging, he was offering his life in exchange for food. "Get up," John said carefully, keeping one hand near the old shotgun resting by the porch. He didn't trust strangers, especially not on a planet where debt collectors and bandits roamed free. "Who are you?" The alien lifted his head. His skin was pale gray, his eyes glowing faintly in the twilight. I was a farmer like you," he said slowly. "I worked the land. I fed my people. But the lords, they took everything. I lost my farm, my family. I have nothing now." He coughed hard, dust clinging to his throat. "Just one meal and I will work until I die." John felt something stir in his chest. He knew hardship, he knew hunger. He remembered his own father, a poor farmer back on Earth, telling him that a man's worth was in his hands, in his work still. Bringing in this alien could be dangerous. The collectors might be after him. "What's your name?" John asked at last. The alien hesitated, then said, "Rhaegar." His voice cracked like he was ashamed to even speak it. John looked at the broken figure lying in the dust. He thought of leaving him there, letting the night wind carry him away, but something about those glowing eyes held him still. They were tired eyes, but also stubborn, like the soil refusing to give up its last grain. Finally, John sighed. "All right, Rhaegar. Come inside." Rhaegar's eyes widened. A spark of life returned to his face. He tried to stand, but almost fell. John stepped forward and caught him by the arm. His skin was rough like old bark, yet his body was trembling with weakness. Together they walked into the small wooden house inside. John placed him on a chair and gave him water first. Rhaegar drank like a man dying in the desert. John then cut slices of bread, added a bowl of stew and placed it on the table. The alien stared at the food like it was a miracle, then he ate. Fast, almost too fast. As if afraid the meal would vanish, John watched in silence. Something about the scene felt heavy. Not just simple charity, but a turning point. He could sense that by feeding this alien, his quiet life might change forever. When Rhaegar finally slowed down, he whispered, "Thank you, human. You don't know what this means." John narrowed his eyes. "Then tell me, who's after you?" Rhaegar's body stiffened. He lowered his head, shame burning in his eyes. "The debt lords, they gave me seed to plant. But the storms came. The harvest failed. I could not pay them back. They took my farm, my wife, even my children. I ran. I have nothing but these hands." He raised them. "Scarred and calloused, I will carry wood. Dig earth, fight beasts, anything. Just don't let me starve." John felt anger rising inside him. Not at Rhaegar, but at the cruelty of the debt lords. He knew them too. They ruled this planet with iron, squeezing farmers until nothing was left. Humans and aliens both suffered under them. But taking Rhaegar in was still dangerous. If the lords found out, they would come, and they never forgave defiance. John stared at the alien farmer across the table. His mind was torn between risk and mercy. Then outside, a noise broke the silence, distant engines. Humming in the night, Rhaegar's face went pale. He looked toward the window with fear in his eyes. "They are near," he whispered. "They hunt me." John stood, his hand gripping the shotgun by the door. His quiet farm life was about to end, and he knew it. He looked at Rhaegar, who was trembling but ready to work, ready to pay his debt in sweat and blood. In that moment, John made a choice. He didn't know why. Maybe because he saw himself in the alien. Maybe because no one else would. But he decided if the lords came knocking, they wouldn't take Rhaegar so easily. The night outside grew darker, the hum of engines closer, and John whispered to himself, "So it begins." The night was heavy and quiet, only the hum of insects filling the air around the small farm. John sat on the porch with his shotgun across his knees, staring into the dark fields somewhere out there he knew. The Debt Lord's hunters were searching. Rhaegar, the alien farmer, slept inside, curled up near the fire like a man who hadn't rested in weeks. But as the moon rose higher, John heard a sound, a soft creak of the door. Rhaegar stepped out, not sneaking but steady. His eyes glowed faintly under the silver light. His body still weak, yet his movements had purpose. He carried John's old tools, a hoe and a shovel slung over his shoulder. "What are you doing?" John whispered, lowering his shotgun but keeping his voice sharp. Rhaegar turned, his rough voice calm. "I said I would work, human, I owe you. Let me prove it, even in darkness the soil waits." John frowned. Who would work in the middle of the night? The ground was dry, the light dim, but curiosity pulled him to follow. In the field, Rhaegar knelt and pressed his long fingers into the dirt. He whispered something in his alien tongue, low and strange, then he began digging, not with the shovel but with bare hands. He worked as if the soil itself spoke to him, finding soft spots, turning them, planting seeds John didn't recognize. "What are those?" John asked, stepping closer. "Seeds from my world," Rhaegar said, his voice almost proud. "They grow fast, strong, even in poor soil. I saved them, even when I lost everything." His hands moved quickly, burying the seeds in neat rows. "If they take root, you will never starve." John folded his arms. Watching, he had never seen planting like this. Not with such care, not with such knowledge. Rhaegar moved like a man who had lived his whole life with the earth. Hours passed, the alien did not stop. He fixed John's broken fence. He cleared weeds, he stacked firewood. His body trembled with hunger and weakness, but he kept moving. His promise was real. He would carry burdens. Even in the dead of night, at last, John spoke. "You'll kill yourself working like this." Rhaegar looked up, sweat glowing on his gray skin, his glowing eyes steady. Better to die with hands in the soil than starve in the dust. John felt a strange respect rise in him. This was no ordinary beggar. This was a man who had been crushed, yet still refused to break. But then a shadow flickered at the edge of the field. John's grip tightened on the shotgun. He stepped closer to Rhaegar. "Someone's out there," he whispered. Rhaegar froze, his alien ears twitched. Catching sounds John couldn't, his face darkened. "The collectors," he said softly. "They are watching." John's heart raced. He scanned the darkness but saw nothing except moving shadows. The hunters were clever, they would wait, watching, making the prey restless before striking. "Get back inside," John ordered. But Rhaegar shook his head. "No, if they see me cower. They win, let them watch, let them see me plant." "A farmer never hides from the soil," John wanted to argue. But the stubborn fire in Rhaegar's voice silenced him. The alien bent once more, pushing seeds into the dirt, his glowing eyes fixed forward, ignoring the hunters lurking in the shadows. John stood guard, shotgun ready, his nerves tight as a wire. If those collectors came closer, he would fight, but they didn't. They stayed at the edge, silent, patient, waiting for morning as the hours crawled by. Rhaegar finished his work. He straightened, shoulders shaking from exhaustion, his rough hands covered in soil. He looked at John and gave a small, weary smile. "Now, your field has hope," John didn't reply. But inside he felt something strange, something like trust building where there had been only suspicion. He glanced at the rows of alien seeds buried in the earth, glowing faintly under the moonlight. They looked almost alive, pulsing with hidden power. Rhaegar stumbled back toward the house, nearly collapsing. John caught him by the arm again and pulled him inside. He made the alien lie down on a blanket. His breathing was shallow but peaceful. John sat by the window for the rest of the night, keeping watch. Outside, he saw movement, dark shapes slipping away before dawn. The hunters had left, but not for good. They would return stronger, maybe with fire and chains. When the sun finally rose, John looked out at his field for the first time in years. He saw green sprouts pushing through the dry earth. They had grown overnight, just as Rhaegar promised. His heart tightened. This alien had brought life to dead soil, but hope always came with danger. The collectors would not allow this if the seeds truly grew. They would bring trouble from every corner of the frontier. John knew it, Rhaegar knew it. The human farmer stood tall, gripping his shotgun as the first rays of light touched his land. He had taken in a stranger, and now the stranger's burdens were his too. And in the distance on the horizon, dust clouds began to rise. The Debt Lords were sending more than just watchers this time. The morning sun burned bright on the horizon, spreading gold light across John's small farm. He rubbed his eyes and stepped outside. His heart stopped when he saw the field. The alien seeds Rhaegar had planted last night had already grown into green stalks, stronger and taller than earth crops could ever grow in such poor soil. John whistled low under his breath. Impossible, he muttered, but it was real. The alien had brought life to a dying farm. Inside the house, Rhaegar sat at the table, his hands scarred but steady. He looked stronger than yesterday, though his body was still thin. He sipped water slowly, as if saving every drop. His glowing eyes followed John, you see, Rhaegar said quietly. The soil remembers kindness. It will give back if treated with respect. John nodded but kept silent. He was impressed, yet his mind was heavy with worry. Those shadows from last night haunted him. The debt lords would not ignore a runaway farmer who had planted alien crops on human land. At last, John asked, "Why do they hunt you so hard? They already took your farm, your family, your land. Why keep chasing you?" Rhaegar's face darkened. His long fingers curled around the wooden cup. He stared at the table, his voice low. "Because to them, debt is a chain. A man who breaks free is worse than a thief. They would rather kill me than let others believe they can escape." John felt anger boiling inside him. He had always hated the debt lords. They crushed humans and aliens alike. They loaned seed, tools, even water, but their prices were poison. Farmers worked until their backs broke, yet still owed more. "How much was your debt?" John asked. Rhaegar's voice cracked. "Too much. I borrowed enough to plant one season. But storms destroyed it. I asked for more time. They refused. They came with chains, took my wife and children, said they would work until my debt was paid, but I knew they would never come home." His glowing eyes dimmed, full of grief. "I ran because if I stayed I would break, and a farmer who breaks is no farmer at all." John clenched his fists. He hated the cruelty, hated the idea of children taken as payment. His heart ached as he thought of his own family back on Earth, far away. "You plan to fight them?" John asked carefully. Rhaegar looked up, his face both tired and fierce. "A farmer does not fight with weapons. A farmer fights by planting seeds, by refusing to give up. If others see that I can grow food without them, they may rise too." John leaned back. His shotgun rested against the wall. His life had been quiet, simple. He never wanted to fight wars. But Rhaegar's words lit something inside him. If one alien farmer could resist, maybe more could. Their talk was cut short by a sudden noise. Hoofbeats and engines on the road. John and Rhaegar both turned. Dust clouds rose as 3 hovercrafts rolled closer, armored with steel and painted in the Lord's dark colors. "They've found me," Rhaegar whispered. His voice carried both fear and shame. John grabbed his shotgun and stepped to the porch. The vehicle stopped near the gate and 3 collectors stepped out, their faces hidden by masks, their voices cold. "Human," one of them called. "You are harboring a fugitive. He belongs to the debt lords." "Hand him over," John's heart pounded. He glanced back at Rhaegar, who stood inside, trembling. The alien's hands shook, but his eyes still burned with stubborn fire. John raised his voice. "This is my land. You don't give me orders here." The collectors laughed, the sound cruel and sharp. "You think your little farm matters? This one owes more than his life is worth if you hide him. You pay his debt too." Rhaegar stepped forward, his voice strong. "I will not return to chains. I will not be their beast again." The collectors moved closer, one of them lifting a shock whip. "Then you will die here." John's finger tightened on the shotgun. His breath came fast. He had fought wild beasts before, but never armed men. Still, something inside him refused to back down. He looked at Rhaegar, then back at the collectors. "And he made his choice. I said, 'This is my land,'" John growled. "And you're not taking him." The collectors froze for a moment. Then their laughter filled the air again. "A human defending an alien?" Foolish, one said. "The lords will burn your farm, salt your soil, leave you with nothing." John's grip on the shotgun tightened. "Then let them try." The standoff stretched, the air heavy with tension. Finally, the collectors stepped back, climbing into their hovercrafts. The leader pointed a gloved finger at John. "You have chosen death, human, when we return. You will regret this," the engines roared. The hovercrafts vanished into the dust. Silence returned, but it was not peace. It was the silence before a storm. Inside, Rhaegar sank into a chair, his chest rising and falling fast. "You should not have done that. Now they will hunt you too." John set the shotgun on the table, his face grim. Then we fight together. Rhaegar's glowing eyes widened, surprise flashing across them. Then slowly he nodded for the first time. Hope lit his tired face. The two farmers sat in silence, listening to the wind blow across the land. Both knew the collectors would return, stronger and angrier. But both also knew something else when the storm came. They would stand side by side. The day moved slow after the collectors left, but their threat still hung in the air like smoke. Jon walked the fields, shotgun always near his hand. He looked at the alien sprouts that had already grown taller since morning. Their green glow shimmered in the light, alive in a way that normal crops never were. Inside the house, Rhaegar sharpened old farm tools into weapons. His hands shook a little from hunger, but his eyes were steady. He spoke without looking up. They will return at night. The lords never forgive insult. You should leave me, human. Give me to them. Save your land, Jon frowned, leaning against the doorway. And let them chain you again? Let them drag you back like a beast? Not happening. Rhaegar's face tightened. He dropped the tool and looked at Jon. You don't understand. If they burn this place, everything you built will turn to ash. My curse will become yours. I cannot allow that. But Jon only shook his head. This land means nothing without freedom. I won't trade one man's life to save a pile of dirt. The alien stared, silent for a long time. Finally, his voice cracked. Why? Why risk yourself for me? I am not your blood, not your kin. Jon's answer came simple. Because I can't watch a man be broken when I can still stand. Outside, clouds gathered, turning the sky dark. The wind carried whispers of storm and danger. The collectors would return, Jon knew it, and this time they would bring fire. Evening came. The alien plants glowed softly, lighting the field with strange green fire. It looked beautiful but also dangerous. Any scout could see them for miles. Jon paced the porch, waiting, his chest heavy with fear but stronger with resolve. Rhaegar joined him, carrying a crude spear made from wood and iron. He stood tall despite his thin frame. If they come, we fight, he said. His voice was low but unshaking. Jon nodded. We fight. Hours passed in silence. Then came the sound. Engines, many this time. A dozen hovercrafts appeared on the horizon. Their lights like angry stars, they moved fast. Kicking dust into the night sky, Rhaegar's face went pale. His hand gripped the spear tight. Too many, he whispered. We cannot stop them. Jon's jaw clenched. He lifted the shotgun. Then we make them bleed before they take us. The hovercrafts surrounded the farm, armored soldiers stepping out. Their masks shone in the moonlight, whips and guns ready. The leader raised his voice. Human, this is your last chance. Hand over the fugitive or burn with him. Jon's heart pounded. This was the moment, the choice he could give Rhaegar up. Save his farm, maybe even his life. But he looked at the alien farmer standing beside him, thin but unbroken, and he knew his answer. Jon stepped forward, shotgun raised high. His voice rang across the night. You'll take him over my dead body. The soldiers laughed, cruel and sharp. Their leader pointed his whip. So be it. Burn it all. Flames erupted as torches were thrown. The fence caught fire. The barn went up in smoke. The alien crops glowed even brighter, refusing to die in the flames. The air filled with smoke and screams of engines. Rhaegar shouted in his language, rushing forward with his spear. He moved like a desperate storm, striking at the soldiers. Jon fired his shotgun, the blast echoing. 2 collectors fell, but more came. Chaos filled the night. The farm burned, but Jon and Rhaegar stood together, backs against each other, fighting with fury. Every swing of the spear, every pull of the trigger was a cry against the chains. But the enemy was endless. Jon's gun clicked empty. Rhaegar's spear broke in half. Still they did not stop. Their bodies bled. Their breaths grew heavy, yet they fought on. The leader stepped forward, raising his whip to strike. His voice full of scorn. You are nothing. A human and an alien farmer cannot stand against the lords. Jon's teeth clenched. He spat into the dirt. Then maybe it's time someone tried. He grabbed a burning plank from the fence and swung it like a weapon. The flames roared as it smashed into the soldier's mask. The battle raged until the soldiers finally pulled back, their leader limping, his voice furious. You will regret this, human. The lords will send an army next time. The hovercraft sped away, leaving behind flames and destruction. The farm was half burned, the barn gone. The house still stood, but barely. The alien plants, though singed, still glowed in the blackened soil, alive against all odds. John dropped the burning plank, his chest heaving. His body was covered in bruises. Rhaegar leaned against the wall, bleeding but standing. "You chose death tonight," Rhaegar said weakly, his voice both broken and proud. John shook his head, wiping sweat and ash from his face. "No, I chose freedom." The two men looked at the glowing field. Small green lights pushing through smoke and ash. In those fragile plants lay a promise, a future. Maybe even a rebellion, and somewhere deep inside. Both human and alien knew the same truth. The lords would return with more power, but so would they, stronger together. The night settled, the fire slowly dying, and on the edge of the horizon, the first light of dawn broke through. The farm smelled of smoke for days. Ash drifted in the wind, settling on the burned wood and blackened earth. John worked silently with rough hands, clearing debris and patching what he could. His shotgun was always within reach. Rhaegar limped across the ruined field, his wound still fresh but his spirit unbroken. He bent down to touch the soil where the alien sprouts grew. Against all odds, the plants had survived the fire, their green glow now brighter in the ash. "They live," he whispered. "They will not die so easily." John came closer, wiping sweat from his brow. "Neither will we," he said firmly. For days they worked side by side, building again. The barn was gone. The fence half burned, but little by little, they rebuilt. John cut wood. Rhaegar carried heavy beams despite his wounds. Each night they collapsed near the fire, exhausted, yet neither complained. But John knew the collectors would return. Not with a handful of men, but with an army. They couldn't hold forever with only a shotgun and a broken spear. They needed more. One evening, as the alien plants reached waist height, Rhaegar spoke. "We cannot stand alone. Human courage is strong. But even the strongest tree falls in a storm. We must find others," John frowned. "Others? You mean the townsfolk? They're too scared. They bow to the lords because they think they have no choice." Rhaegar shook his head. "Not just townsfolk, farmers, wanderers. Anyone who is lost to the debt chains. If they see hope, they will rise." John looked at the glowing crops, a strange thought forming in his mind. Maybe these seeds are hope. The next day, they packed what little food remained and set out. John carried his shotgun. Rhaegar carried a small pouch of the alien seeds. Their journey led them to small settlements scattered across the dry land. The first farm they visited was half empty. Its owner, an old alien woman with hollow eyes. Her children had been taken for debts. Her field was dead. Rhaegar knelt, offering her a handful of glowing seeds. "Plant these," he said softly. "They will feed you. They will free you from the Lord's grain." The woman stared, suspicious, but when she touched the seeds, her eyes widened. She agreed to try for the first time in years. A spark of hope lit her face. Word spread quickly. John and Rhaegar moved from farm to farm. Each time they gave seeds, each time they spoke of resistance. Some were afraid, but many listened. Some even whispered that if a human and an alien could stand together, maybe the lords could be defied at night. John and Rhaegar sat by their campfire. Talking in low voices, Rhaegar's tone was heavy. "Every seed we plant is a weapon. Every farmer who joins us is a shield. But the lords will hear of this soon." John poked the fire with a stick. "Then let them hear. Let them know farmers won't bow forever." But danger was never far. One night as they camped near the hills, shadows crept close. John's sharp ears caught movement. He lifted his shotgun, whispering, "We're not alone." Suddenly, 3 masked scouts rushed from the dark, carrying blades and whips. They were debt collectors' spies. Sent to silence them, John fired, the blast echoing through the hills. One spy fell. Rhaegar charged with a wooden staff. Striking the second down, the third fled, vanishing into the night. Rhaegar leaned on the staff, breathing hard. "They know now," he said. "They will come faster. Stronger." John reloaded his shotgun, his face hard. "Good. Let them come. We'll be ready." By the time they returned to John's farm, the alien crops were tall and shining. The once dead land looked alive. Farmers from nearby settlements had come quietly to see it, their eyes wide, their voices whispering. They saw green fields growing without the Lord's grain. Without the Lord's permission, Rhaegar stood before them, raising his scarred hands. "We are farmers. We break our backs to feed others, yet we are chained like slaves, but look here, life grows free. The lords cannot own the soil. They cannot own our sweat. If you stand, if you plant, if you fight, they cannot own you." The crowd murmured, some afraid, some inspired. John stepped forward, his voice sharp. "I fought them once. I'll fight them again, but I won't survive alone. Neither will Rhaegar. If you're tired of chains, stand with us. If you want freedom, take these seeds." The farmers looked at one another, their faces filled with years of pain and hunger. Slowly, one by one, they stepped forward, taking seeds, planting them in their own fields. It was a small beginning, but Jon felt it deep inside. This was no longer just about saving one alien farmer. This was about lighting a fire across the land. That night, as stars filled the sky, Rhaegar sat beside Jon, his voice heavy with both hope and fear. "The Lords will strike soon." "Harder than ever," Jon nodded, gripping his shotgun. "Then let's make sure when they strike." The whole frontier answers back. In the distance, dust rose again, faint but growing. The enemy was moving, preparing, but so were the farmers. The seeds of resistance had been planted, and this time they would not grow alone. The weeks that followed were uneasy. Jon's farm no longer looked like the quiet home it once was. The alien crops grew tall and strong, glowing green even under the pale moons. Farmers from nearby villages visited often, some to ask for seeds, others to whisper news every night. More rumors spread, how the debt lords grew angry, how they planned to crush the growing defiance. Jon listened with a heavy heart. He cleaned his shotgun again and again. Knowing it would not be enough against an army, Rhaegar worked without rest, teaching humans and aliens alike how to plant, how to tend the glowing crops. His body was still thin, but his spirit burned brighter with each field that sprang to life. Yet at night, when the fire was low, Jon saw the fear in his friend's eyes. Rhaegar knew the lords would come, not as raiders but as conquerors. One evening, as the farmers gathered near Jon's field, a boy came running, his face pale. "They're coming," he cried. "An army!" Ships, machines, fire. The crowd grew silent. Mothers clutched their children. Old men lowered their heads. Even the strongest farmers looked afraid. Rhaegar raised his scarred hands. "This is the storm I warned of," he said, his voice steady. "The lords will try to burn us down, but remember, fire cannot kill what is rooted deep." Jon stepped forward, his voice sharp. "We've come too far to turn back now. You've seen what these seeds can do. You've seen that the lords are not gods. They bleed, they can fall if we stand together. They won't take us so easily." That night, they prepared. Farmers carried tools as weapons, axes, pitchforks, heavy hammers. Some had old rifles or pistols. Rhaegar showed them how to set traps in the soil, how to use the land as defense. Jon taught them to aim, to fight close, to fight dirty if they had to. Then the storm came. At dawn, the horizon turned black with smoke. Massive machines rolled forward, metal beasts taller than barns. Hovercrafts swarmed the skies. Soldiers in dark armor marched in rows. Their weapons crackled with deadly energy. The earth trembled beneath their boots. The farmers stood in the fields, their hearts pounding behind them. The alien crops glowed like emerald fire, a living wall. The Lord's commander raised a loudspeaker, his voice cruel and cold. "Farmers, lay down your seeds. Surrender the fugitive alien and his human. Do this, and we may spare your lives." For a moment, silence stretched. Fear pressed heavy on the crowd. Some shifted nervously. But then Rhaegar stepped forward, his voice carrying across the field. "You cannot chain the soil. You cannot chain us. We are not yours." The commander sneered and raised his hand. "Burn them all." The sky erupted. Fire rained down as the machines unleashed their weapons. Fields lit with flame, barns exploded into splinters. The air filled with screams, but the farmers did not scatter. Jon fired his shotgun, the blast echoing like thunder. Rhaegar charged with a spear of sharpened iron. Others followed, shouting, throwing rocks, swinging axes. The field became a battlefield. Traps hidden in the soil exploded. Flipping metal machines, pits swallowed soldiers, pitchforks pierced through armor. Farmers fought like wolves defending their den. The lords had numbers, weapons, power, but the farmers had fury. Jon fought until his arms shook, his body bruised. He saw one of the massive walkers turning its cannon toward the glowing crops. His heart stopped. If the alien seeds were destroyed, all hope would die. He sprinted across the field, climbing the machine's leg. The heat burned his hands, but he held on. He shoved his shotgun into a vent and pulled the trigger. The blast tore through the engine. The machine roared and collapsed. Rhaegar stood on the field, his voice like a war cry, rallying others. "Do not yield. The earth is with us." He swung his spear again and again, his thin body moving with the strength of desperation. But the fire was everywhere. Smoke choked the air. Homes burned, men and women fell, the storm of fire was merciless. Still, the lords were not ready for such resistance. Every step forward cost them blood. Every machine destroyed made their army weaker. Jon and Rhaegar fought side by side, pushing them back inch by inch. At last, as night fell, the commander saw his forces broken, half his machines destroyed. His voice was full of fury. "This is not the end, farmers. The lords will crush you with greater force." He retreated, his army pulling back into the smoke. Silence fell, broken only by crackling fire and ragged breathing. The fields were scorched, bodies lay on the ground. But the alien crop still glowed, bent but not broken. Pushing through the ash, Jon leaned on his shotgun, his chest heaving, his face black with soot. Rhaegar limped to his side, bleeding but alive. Their eyes met. Neither spoke, but both knew the truth. They had survived the storm. The farmers gathered. Their faces tired but fierce, they had fought, and they had not been crushed for the first time in generations. They had forced the debt lords to retreat. Rhaegar lifted a glowing sprout in his hand, holding it high. "We are still here," he cried, his voice shook with both pain and triumph. The farmers raised their tools and voices, a ragged cheer rising into the smoky night. They were no longer just victims. They were resistance rooted deep, unbroken, and in the distance the stars above seemed brighter, as if the galaxy itself was watching, waiting. The battlefield was quiet after the storm. Smoke curled into the night sky, the smell of ash heavy in the air. Jon stood among the ruins of his farm, his shotgun resting against his shoulder. His body ached, his clothes were torn, but his eyes burned with stubborn fire. Beside him, Rhaegar limped through the scorched soil, his gray skin marked with cuts and burns. In his rough hands he carried a single stalk of the alien crop, still glowing green even after the fire. He held it up, showing the farmers gathered around. "We live," he whispered, his voice hoarse but proud. "And so does the seed." The crowd was silent for a moment, their faces weary and full of pain. Yet slowly, whispers spread, soft at first. Then louder, farmers pointed at the glowing crops that had survived the flames. Bent but alive even in the blackened earth, green life pushed through. Jon raised his voice. "They came with fire. They came with machines, and yet, look, the land still gives, the seed still grows, they cannot destroy us." The farmers shouted, their voices rising like thunder. For the first time, they did not feel like slaves. They felt like people who could stand. Days turned to weeks, the fields healed not quickly but steadily. Rhaegar showed them how to plant more seeds, and soon green spread across the black soil. The farms of neighbors also began to glow, hidden at first, then bolder as courage grew. Travelers brought news from other settlements. The story of the human and the alien farmer spread like fire across the frontier. Villages whispered of the Green Rebellion, fields of crops the lords could not burn. Some even said the lords had begun to fear the farmers. For every time they destroyed one field, 3 more would rise. One evening, Jon sat on the porch, staring at the glowing plants swaying gently in the wind. Rhaegar sat beside him, his body still healing. They were quiet for a long time. Then Jon spoke. "I never asked for this. I just wanted a farm, a quiet life." Rhaegar turned to him, his glowing eyes soft. "And I never asked to be broken. But sometimes the soil decides what grows." "Not us," Jon chuckled bitterly. "So we're weeds then? Growing where they don't want us?" Rhaegar's cracked lips curved into a smile. "Yes, weeds that feed the hungry. Weeds that cannot be killed." Their laughter was tired but real. As the moons rose, families from nearby farms arrived carrying baskets. They brought bread made from the alien grain. Warm and golden, the farmers shared it around the fire. Each bite was more than food. It was proof. Proof that they could feed themselves without the lords. Proof that chains could be broken. Jon held a piece of the bread. Its crust rough, but its smell rich. He thought of his father back on Earth, telling him that bread was the gift of honest work. He felt something heavy in his chest lift. Rhaegar broke his bread in half and handed it to a small alien child, her eyes wide with hunger. She took it shyly, chewing fast. A smile spread across her face for the first time in months. Rhaegar's eyes glistened as he whispered, "For them we fight, for them we plant." The farmers nodded. Some wept quietly. Others raised their bread high, as if it were a flag, but Jon's heart remained cautious. He knew the lords were not finished. They would regroup, send more armies, heavier machines. Their greed would not allow farmers to grow free forever. He looked at the crowd gathered around the fire, their tired but determined faces. "When they come again," he said, his voice strong, "we won't just defend one farm, we'll defend all farms. They will find not 2 men standing in their way, but hundreds." The people cheered. Their fear was not gone, but it was no longer stronger than their hope. That night, John and Rhaegar walked the field together. The alien farmer knelt, placing his hand on the soil. "Do you hear it?" he asked softly. John frowned. "Hear what?" Rhaegar smiled faintly. "The soil. It whispers when it is alive. It whispers when it is free tonight." "It sings." John shook his head, half amused, half moved. "If it sings, then let's make sure it never goes silent again." In the distance, the stars shone brighter. The galaxy was vast, and the lords were powerful, but here, in this small corner, a seed of rebellion had been planted. It would grow, it would spread. And one day it would feed more than just hungry mouths. It would feed freedom itself. Rhaegar stood tall, raising a stalk of glowing grain toward the sky. His voice carried across the night. "We asked for food, and the human gave us more. He gave us a future." The farmers raised their bread high, their voices joining his, echoing across the land. The lords had fire, chains, and armies, but the farmers now had something stronger, hope rooted deep. And from that night on, people told the story of the human and the alien farmer, the night they turned hunger into strength, and how bread became the banner of freedom. The storm of fire had passed, but the seed of tomorrow had been planted, and nothing in the galaxy could stop it from growing.